Let's keep the ball rolling, everybody. Welcome to Chaos Gaming, and FPS Games got better and better as the years went on. And technology, it got better and better as well. And 2002 was a pretty pivotal year. The PS2 and the Xbox were in everybody's hands. Shooters were starting to grow on consoles, and everybody was trying to one-up everyone else. Welcome to Chaos Gaming once again. Today, we are going to check out the 25 best FPS games that were released in 2002. You let me know if you played any of these, what your favorite was, drop a like, and if you guys want 2003 next, let me know. At number 25, Delta Force Urban Warfare. Let's kick things off with a game developed by Rebellion, who would later go on to have a pretty impressive library. Delta Force Urban Warfare is a military simulator for the PS1, which is a pretty insane combination of things when you consider how old it was. It got pretty solid reviews at the time, and it was even re-released in 2010 for the PS3. And the PSP, actually. You could probably grab it if you wanted to give it a go. It was a super ambitious game for its time. I think it's a good way to start today's list. At number 24, Dark Arena. You may not have heard of this one. It was an FPS exclusive to the Game Boy Advance, and before you laugh at me, it was actually pretty good. Now, despite being made for a console with no graphical power to speak of, Dark Arena was actually pretty impressive as a Doom clone, and while it didn't do anything crazy, it did have a lot of niche appeal to it in the platform. This was around the time when developers were really starting to figure out how good FPS games were made. At number 23, this one's dear to my heart. I love dinosaurs. TUROK Evolution. Now, a lot of people point to this game as being the one that killed the franchise. I don't totally agree with that. Now, TUROK Evolution may have been a step backwards from the glory days of TUROK 2, but it was still a solid shooter, one of the better FPS titles of 2002. The gameplay was simplified, the story wasn't all that interesting, but the shooting and visuals had some merit. It was pretty hard to be more hardcore and edgy than the previous entries, but I think the shift in tone worked in its favor in certain regards. Is it a great game? No. Is it as bad as people say? I don't think so. TUROK Evolution has some really solid elements to it, and I think it deserved a spot, albeit a low one. At number 22, America's Army. You've probably heard of this game, and you did because it was impressive. The first version was released for the PC in July of 2002, and it was meant to not only be a military simulator, but also a way of educating people as to what life in the Army is like. America's Army has been updated time and time again, and while the project has been somewhat abandoned now, it was a pretty good game, and it was very, very detailed for its time. At number 21, who got into Tribes? Tribes Aerial Assault. It's weird. It was an online-only multiplayer shooter exclusive to the PS2, and it was released in 2002, more than 10 years before always-online shooters were a thing. But regardless of all that, Tribes Aerial Assault was actually pretty fun. It had a ton of content, the combat was pretty addicting, and the technical aspects were marveled. You can't really play it anymore, which is the main problem with always online games, but you can go look it up on YouTube. It's actually interesting. Give it a watch. At number 20, Tactical Ops Assault on Terror. Woo! The game started as a mod for Unreal Tournament back in 1999, but it got its official release in 2002. Unlike its sci-fi origins, Tactical Ops is a slower-paced and more methodical shooter, although it does maintain a focus on multiplayer combat. Now, for a mod made by a small team, it was actually impressive. It's also cool to see a mod get a full retail release. At number 19, Die Hard Nakatomi Plaza. Now, Die Hard games have been pretty bad for the most part, but this one, it had a little bit of appeal. Developed exclusively for the PC on the Build engine, it was an FPS based on the first movie of the franchise, which I like to call the best one, and the gameplay was pretty basic. Level design wasn't anything special, but fans of the series, they'd have a few fun hours with it and do a quick playthrough. It's not going to blow you away, but if you're a fan of the first movie, which you should be, it's fun. At number 18, Global Operations. That can mean so many things. There was a lot of tactical shooters in the early 2000s, and this one was developed by Barking Dog Studios, that's a really cool name, and released for the PC with super deep gameplay. There was a lot of ways to play it. Now, it was obvious that it took notes from Counter-Strike, but this was more team-dependent, if you can actually believe that. It's true. It got good reviews, and while it didn't last as long as Counter-Strike, it was fun while it lasted. At number 17, 007 Agent Under Fire. Now, this game is not good, but it's still one of the better James Bond shooters. It's not based on any established James Bond story or canon, and it features a unique version of James himself. The gameplay was a pretty faithful update of the gold mine mechanics, albeit updated for the next console generation, which I can appreciate. The problems, well, it was repetitive. The level design was super repetitive and very, very short. But if you're looking for a game where you just turn your brain off for a few hours and you feel like an action movie hero, here you go. At number 16, Medal of Honor Frontline. Who remembers when Medal of Honor was good? Raise your hand. Frontline is often seen as one of the best in the series, and it dropped on the PS2, GameCube, and Xbox in 2002. Now, like most of the other Medal of Honor games, Frontline was a World War II shooter that primarily focused on, you guessed it, the European theater and the front line. Tense combat, elaborate set pieces, a very emotional story. It was a blockbuster shooter before Call of Duty had ever been conceived, and Frontline is one of the best in the series. But there's one more Medal of Honor game that came out in 2002, and we'll talk about that a little later. Yes, there was 2 of them. At number 15, Command & Conquer Renegade. You guys know Command & Conquer, right? The strategy series. But Renegade was actually a first and third person shooter, if you can believe that. It was a spin-off. It was developed by Westwood Studios for the PC. It was a super unique game. Like I said, it's a first and third person shooter, but it also has elements of RTS thrown in it to keep things more in line with what you would expect from a CNC game. Now, it turned some of the fans off of the series, okay, but it was a solid shooter. It even got a fan-made remake in 2014 called Renegade X, which you can go play right now. Check it out if you want something just a little different from the regular Command & Conquer series. At number 14, Ballistic X vs. Sever? Remember the Game Boy Advance shooter from a couple videos ago, X and Sever? Well, it got a sequel. It's called Ballistic, and it was actually alright, as opposed to what you may have expected. This Game Boy Advance FPS was really, really good, one of the best exclusives to come out for that system that year. Unfortunately, competition was hot in 2002, and it didn't sell as well as the original. But if you can find a copy, it'll, like I said, turn your brain off for a couple hours. At number 13, 007 Nightfire, often seen as one of the best 007 games ever made. It was developed by Eurocom, published by none other than EA. Featured a single-player campaign as well as a pretty stripped-down multiplayer like many James Bond's games are known for. It was one of the best reviewed console shooters of 2002, and the 007 license has fallen off the world, I know. But it was a ton of fun. It was. I mean, if you can emulate it, go give it a try. At number 12, Natural Selection. Like many early 2000s shooters, it's a mod for the original Half-Life, although you'd be forgiven for not believing me because this looks and completely plays different. The graphics and lighting are a lot darker. The gameplay is hybrid, I'd say, of an FPS and an RTS. Now, people have been trying to blend FPS and RTS for a long, long time. Natural Selection was one of the first. It was natural select. Anyway, praise for its technical aspects as well as many things. People were blown away. I mean, the devs were able to update the gameplay and the engine, and it was good. It was one of the best shooters of 2002, and it's one of the most impressive Half-Life mods ever released. At number 11, we're starting to get into the really good ones. Serious Sam: The Second Encounter, a sequel in the truest sense. It was almost identical to the first game, and that's a good thing because the first game was amazing. Fast-paced, over-the-top FPS. You played as a dude blasting through hordes of enemies with ease, all while using ridiculous weapons and firing out some memorable one-liners. Plus, like other Serious Sam games, the visuals were next level for the time, and it aged like fine wine. Check it out. It's been re-released on pretty much every console, so you don't have any excuses. And now we've reached the top 10. Iron Storm. Yeah, it took place in an alternate history where World War I never ended. Okay, COD Vanguard. And it revolved around an allied shooter trying to keep the Russian Mongolian Empire, I don't know, whatever, from acquiring nuclear weapons in 1964? The game had some pretty linear levels, and the gameplay was simple, but the technical aspects were pretty impressive for the time, and the story was interesting. It flew under the radar a bit, but it was popular enough to get a remake in 2004 as World War Zero, which you might have heard of. Iron Storm was pretty interesting. It's worth a look if you like alternate history games, which I actually do. I don't know why I'm hating on it. At number 9, Soldier of Fortune 2 Double Helix, developed by none other than Raven Software. It was released for the PC in 2002. It was a huge improvement over the original in every form. It improved the gameplay, the graphics, the gore, which were the main draw of the first one. The level design wasn't quite as good as the first game, but from a technical standpoint, Soldier of Fortune 2 was extremely impressive and still worth a look in 2021. It was a solid FPS, and it was definitely one of the best of that year. At number 8, Red Faction 2, developed by Volition, the team that would later go make Saints Row. Yep. It was a multiplayer focused shooter set in the near future with some pretty interesting lore. The campaign was criticized for being on the short side, which a lot are, but the gameplay was praised for some of the best in FPS shooting. Red Faction would later go on to be a very respected franchise, and its early beginnings here were certainly impressive. At number 7, Star Wars Jedi Knight 2 Jedi Outcast. It's a long one. Many people call this one of the best Star Wars shooters ever made. I don't think it's quite as good as some others, but it was good. It took place in the now trashed expanded universe and had you playing as a mercenary and former Jedi who returns to the Jedi Order in an attempt to stop the remnants of the Empire from rising again. Sounds familiar, kinda. It refines the previous gameplay and allowed you to play it from a first or third person perspective. Plus, it had some of the best lightsaber combat of any Star Wars game ever released. It was an upper tier Star Wars game. It was. It aged like fine wine, yes. Wasn't the best, though. At number 6, told you, one more. Medal of Honor Allied Assault. Many will call this game the best in the series. I get it. It takes place in World War II. Greatly refined the dramatic presentation of previous games, and it focused primarily around the European and North African theaters of the conflict. The gameplay was fantastic. The story was great, and it was all topped off with an awesome multiplayer mode that most people would never get to experience. It solidified Medal of Honor as a top dog in the FPS field in that time, and it was met with critical acclaim and really good sales. Unfortunately, the franchise has died. At number 5 today, No One Lives Forever 2. Yeah, No One Lives Forever was one of the best reviewed PC shooters of the time. The sequel, it did the impossible. It was better in every way. Like the previous title, it was a spy shooter. Lots of attitude. It was cool. Style, great writing. The shooting was smooth. The environments were awesome. And the dialogue was sharp and witty. And the gear, well, it was pretty cool. No One Lives Forever 2 holds up super well. And you can get it on Steam right now for super cheap. Plus, it came out in 2002, so you can run it on practically any computer. At number 4, Battlefield 1942. Some people still point to this being the best Battlefield game of all time. I don't agree with that, but I'll give it a ton of credit because it was good. The mechanics aged super well. It was one of the most popular PC shooters in the world back in 2002, and it helped popularize that kind of large-scale warfare that Battlefield is now known for. Now, compared to other Battlefield games, 1942 is much simpler. It's more straightforward, which it has its own appeal. It's a great game, and there's still ways to play it in 2021 if you want to do a little research. We've only got 3 left. The best of the best. Unreal Tournament 2003. It used to be one of the biggest shooter franchises in the world, and it's probably never going to get revived like that, but we can look back and get nostalgic and remember those glory days. Now, Unreal Tournament 2003 was an impressive update of the previous game's mechanics, all while improving the visuals and the performance. Plus, it introduced us to a ton of new weapons and gameplay elements that fans still remember fondly. Is it the best Unreal Tournament? I'll let you debate that, but it was a good one. At number 2, Time Splitters 2, one of the most underappreciated franchises in FPS history. It was a rare sequel that improved upon the first in every way. Like the first game, Time Splitters 2 had you jumping around, you guessed it, time, and trying to stop various bad guys from screwing up the world's timeline. And that was all topped off with really good levels, fun characters, and some really good shooting. Back in 2002, it was one of the best FPS gameplay games you could get on console, and if you could get it up and running on an emulator, you will immediately see why people want this franchise to make a comeback. It's probably never going to, but we can appreciate it. And at number 1 today, on the best FPS games of 2002, Metroid Prime. If you know your gaming history, which I think most of you do, this is not going to shock you. It blew everybody away. To this day, I think it's one of the most underrated Nintendo exclusives ever. It took the formula of Super Metroid and it perfectly translated it to the third dimension, complete with all kinds of mechanics, weapons, and everything. Plus, the game aged very well. The visuals were extremely impressive for 2002, and the soundtrack is pure fire. It's a must-play for all fans of first-person shooters, and I don't think many people are going to disagree with it being in the number 1 spot today. And there you have it, my friends. That's a trip down the nostalgic FPS world of 2002. Do you remember any of these games? Do any of them make you think back? Let me know one game that didn't make the list that should have, and I'll see you guys soon.